A little 1,800 square foot 1950s house with 2 bedrooms becomes the solar ranch. 2 years of construction at only $125 a square foot with the high-tech included. People are building regular houses at $125 a square foot. The existing house is actually in here. Those sliders, all those openings, we went up and out and off at the top. So if you can salvage what's left from an existing house, in our case the whole thing, you're actually going way ahead of the eco curve than building a new house that happens to have solar panels on it. This is a 24-panel array that generates 6,200,000 watts of power. That's called a 6K system, K being for 1,000, because it's 6,000 kilowatts. There are 1,000 watts in a kilowatt. 10 100-watt light bulbs running for an hour run a kilowatt. Keep that in mind. These generate the hot water for the floors, the showers, everything else that you would use in your house. So as we go through these slides, you're building a system that is basically also tucked into the hill, which has a passive geothermal. Basically a ground source geo component, because ground temperature is only 57 degrees. Learned that traveling in some of the hill towns outside Italy and even the Amish country where they build bank barns into the hill, keep the animals from freezing in the winter and from overheating in the summer. Some of the logic of this comes from literally thousands of years of architectural development. Here's the front, before, and after. Same doors, painted in red. So all these windows were part of the existing house. We just restuck them. So the idea was to also build it so that it didn't have the look of an addition, that it was something that was fully integrated. And that skin at the end is what helped accomplish that. Going through this further, this was the existing footprint. We added the master bath and the big family room in the back. So the transformation looks actually significantly more dramatic in the photographs than it does in the floor plan. Upstairs, we ended up with multiple bedrooms and bathrooms. There was no natural light for the bathrooms, so we're going to talk about bringing in sun tunnels and sun tubes, all kinds of really innovative ways to get light in there. And overall, 50 key eco points. They're probably close to over 100 if we added all the little stuff in, but I'll touch on some of them now. Radiant floors, bringing the hot water in from the sun to a solar thermal tank, triple insulated tank in the basement, and then pumping it through, using the sun again for the electricity to run the pumps, all through the floor slabs. Big, thick 12-inch blocks filled, double, triple insulated walls, so that at the point of purchase, instead of just thinking of what everyone else was doing, we went a little turbo. It was an incremental cost that has a massive, leverage in terms of the savings. Double studs. I'm going to show you the insulation in a second, but a big open kitchen, family room, and when you blow in the insulation with a double thick wall, you actually can hug the elements like the junction boxes for the sconce lights, for the outlets. So you're creating a much better thermal boundary. Locally made cabinets from local materials, painted with a zero VOC paint, that's no volatile organic compounds. All these things start to add up to efficient, but also a non-toxic home, which is part of the wish list for the lifestyle. Outside, reusing the patio and cutting the pieces instead of just chucking them in a dumpster. We did this whole addition without using a dumpster on the job site. It was about salvaging and reuse and repurposing all the pieces that we could, even the local stones from the Delaware River. Hey, there's a beauty shot from one of the magazines inside, when it's all done. Toxic elements within the fabrics, the whole idea of having a natural light and the casement windows is all about, again, meeting that lifestyle component. And the hot water literally runs through these floors with the stone tile. Mom wanted a big kitchen, so we gave her that. And even the low flow faucets, all of the light bouncing off of mirrors and backsplashes, chairs from the Whitebriar Hotel that was throwing them out and just refinished them. All this stuff. Trust me, it's got the whole line. There's not a shortage of beer in the house, but there also isn't a shortage of some of the hardware. Instead of just the toys for Dad, these happen to have the power strips on the back that reduce the standby power. So you're able to actually shut the house down from the phantom loads that exist. So some of it's totally invisible, right? You don't see the floor. It doesn't look like a solar floor. It looks like someone else's regular floor. It just happens that all those steps were taken to make it efficient. Here's the little guy, grew up on the job site, knows just about everything I do about these solar houses and smart construction now. So he will spot things. It's funny what little kids digest without you knowing. He's now like 3.5. Up in the front, some more construction, showing where we kept the house, and this was like part of blowing out that additional garage conversion. Has anyone seen a dual flush toilet? Pretty logical, right? If you need less water, for number one, next slide, there are two buttons. There's a low flow, which is less than a gallon, and then a regular flush. The Europeans have used these for years. Like, we're just catching up. And I think what's exciting is to see that the cost is comparable with some of the traditional NEEPs, the non-eco equivalent products. Fans, great, 5-speed, but also reversible, so you can move the warmer air down in the winter. Skylights, retractable to let the ventilation come through in the summer, up and out of the house. And then that's one of the sun tubes up in here, where it's literally like a chimney that is covered in the inside with foil, like a mylar. This is NASA stuff. It will bounce the light around, so if you don't have room for a skylight, you can move that tunnel around ductwork and everything that's up in your attic. Free light for 30 or 40 years until you decide, it could be longer, to change it out. But that's the kind of thinking that isn't typically part of our mindset. This is what the sun tunnel looks like up on the roof. We'll keep going to save some time here, building the box out on the back. Hey, anyone seen the mulch made from shredded tires? Imagine keeping the tires out of the landfills and also reducing that massive drain on the environment when we pump the CO2 from the diesel fuel that's hauling the mulch all through the suburbs, the office parks. I mean, just imagine on a spring day today, the volume of mulch that's being moved and it's dyed and stained, when we can do something as simple as reuse the tires. We certainly didn't invent at Green and Save the shredded tire mulch. It happens that DuPont is now taking some, instead of even just shredding them, they melt them down and turn them into chips like you'll see at playgrounds. Well, why not put it in your house and save yourself the labor as well as the dollars of remulching every spring and fall? It lasts 30 years. This is what lands you on the cover of Inventor's Digest magazine as an entrepreneur. I designed this system to heat the house, cool the house, run all the lights and electric, and run the hot water for all the systems. It's the SSI quad system. Cerati Solar integrated 4-point unit. Here's what you do. You convert your electricity from a direct to an alternating current through an inverter box. You then feed it into the grid on a net metering system so that you sell it as you create it and buy it only when you need it. There are days when we sell, and there are days when we need to buy in the winter. You then bring, coming off of the roof, the hot water into a solar thermal tank that's triple lined and insulated, and store that water sometimes up to 190 degrees. You only need 110 to take a shower. So now all summer, spring and fall, you're getting the free water. If you do not have enough water temperature in the winter, we put in a on-demand Japanese Takagi backup system. What I have here is pumps and gauges into the floor tile and the metering system to run the circuit through to the floors, and then also have a scald protection system if the water's too hot to drip a little bit of the cold water in to keep the kid from burning his hands. Next slide is a detail of some of the metering systems. It has a little Rube Goldberg feel because we kind of built it as we were going with 6 manufacturers from 6 countries, half a dozen subcontractors, and quite a few sweat equity hours of retooling. This is the on-demand flash heater. People heard about these? Instead of a tank of water, all of you have at home, in your apartments or your dorms, wherever it is, a tank of water kept at about 120 to 140 degrees. I don't see anyone here taking a shower right now. That's wasted fuel. We're literally keeping pilots and burn rates on. What the on-demand system does is as the water comes in cold, it fires it up to the 110 and then releases it out into the whole domestic system for the house. This will be 3 showers concurrently with a washer, dryer, and a dishwasher into perpetuity. In our case, we feed 90-degree water in the winter because that's about the max we get from the panels, and it just has to lift the water 20 degrees. In the summer, I had it set with the temperature control, so it's a conduit. It just literally lets that water flush through. We're moving towards the end of this slideshow, and here's an example of window treatments. If you look at the windows in this gorgeous library, you'll see that there's a film for shading the sun, but there's no insulation value. These will shade the sun, but by trapping the air, they also have an R value of 3, which will actually double the insulation factor of the windows themselves. All this is part of what we train our home efficiency consultants to be able to recommend the small things first. No one needs the SSI 4.0 system right away when they can get for $60 to $100 in window treatments. Same thing within these curtains. If there's money that's being spent, why not add this special NASA fiber? It's a liner and an inner liner that will insulate those curtains. So at the point of purchase, if someone's thinking about doing things, part of this green and save model is to stop them from doing what they may have thought was a standard practice. And that cost is just incremental because you're already paying for the material, the stitching, you're now just adding the lining. As we keep going through this, the payback and ROI, I can tell you, we have charts and charts of data. We've scrubbed through with all of our researchers and writers, the Department of Energy, the Energy Star, the LEED programs, the manufacturer specs. And if you can see this, for something like a programmable thermostat, spending $115 to save $180 a year is money well spent. I don't know where in the stock market you can get that kind of a return, especially with today's performance.
In green and save.
Well, in green and save, that's right. People have started to see some yield, thank you, Howard, from their investment. But what we did is we ranked, for the first time on the web, the actual performance payback down to the time in years. Some of them have less than a single year payback. We look at the added cost to go green, the annual savings, and then the 10-year rollout. And this has become an incredible tool. It's been the driver for our partnership with the National Association of Realtors. And many of these groups, imagine 1.2 million members, are now using data to inform their agents, their homeowners, the entire loop. So with, let's just say 100 million homes in America, if there are a million advertising messages coming from real estate agents that homeowners can smarten up their homes, if each one knows 50 to 100 people, you start to hit American homes at the core. We'll keep going through. We're not going to click on everything like solar attic fans and talk about water heater replacement, but you're welcome to go drive through the site and field any comments or questions. It keeps going down the list, and it's going to end as we kind of scroll through this with, after the remodeling section, it sort of starts light green, goes into remodeling, and then we're going to get to one more slide ahead, this green transformation. This is when you get into like, I want to step up. I want to do something with the more sophisticated toilets, the roofs. I want to get into these radiant floors and thermal mass floors, all with solar hot water and geothermal. This is not for the faint of heart. This is for people that want to transform their home and really think about making an impact. And the last one of these tables is just about the roofs, the water, and the solar electric. Here's a big roster of the type of sources that we use to triangulate this data. No one source has the exact right information. It's obviously subject to house size, and we use the 2,500 square foot U.S. average as the benchmark so people can feel out where they stand in that relationship. Moving into the green story a little bit further, we're going to close by talking about this property efficiency. It's an amazing concept. There is not a career path that had existed before we set out to do this. There were certainly home inspections and there were energy audits, but they did not look at the whole house. They did not look at the water consumption. They did not look at the air quality. They did not look at the energy collectively with the outside of the house and the landscape and provide that type of ROI data. As we look through this, spending $300, sometimes $400 to do a checkup has become really an interesting play for a lot of homeowners, especially when we decode this American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, because not all of the Energy Star products meet the criteria for the tax credit. People are going and buying hot water tanks and things that actually do not qualify, and they're going to get an ugly surprise phone call or email from their accountant when they learn that they don't get a single penny back. Going through this, it's really detective work, going through the home, finding where and what could be done to make the property more efficient, and then as we close this out, I think that making money by helping others is a pretty cool concept. That's a benevolent, not a Machiavellian approach. And as we close this out, we talked initially about this. New jobs, saving money for the homeowners, the higher home values, and then I reintroduced this slide because the byproduct is the healthy home and the healthy planet. So it's, again, not necessarily starting with that typical green initiative. It's about starting with dollars and getting to those green initiatives through the process. Finally, we'll close with the little guy growing up a little bit. I think that your generation, and certainly my son Calvin's, will grow up in a world where green will just be associated with smart home construction. I hope that that is the case, that we will learn the lessons over this next decade, and the recession in an unfortunate way, creates hardship, but it also makes you tear that muscle to grow back stronger. So that is the end of the eco initiative and the conversation for green and safe. We'll take the call, the questions right at the end.